Hello guys, welcome to my channel, Relearning with Desi. I did have a channel before this that was called Sip and Pour, but that channel is transitioning into more of lifestyle based content given the fact that I will be having a baby soon and I'm going to have a lot of time at home. I'm going to share a little bit more of my journey with that on that channel. So if you guys are interested in that style of content, definitely go ahead and follow me on there. But as for this channel, I really want to focus on having deep, meaningful conversations that encourage us to reflect, to be self-aware, to heal, and more than anything, to have empathy for other people. So honestly, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things. I'm super passionate about psychology. I love learning about religion. I have a little bit more knowledge on the Christian religion specifically because that's the one that I was raised in, but then I later deconstructed as an adult. So sometimes I will be sharing what that deconstruction process looks like, as well as other things that I've been discovering and learning about the Christian religion. But aside from that, I'm also very passionate about self-healing, emotional regulation, taking your nervous system into consideration, psychology, of course, and societal norms, challenging those norms, and questioning why we follow certain things and do certain things within society. All in all, I just love learning and talking, so that's what this channel is going to be focused on. Now, with that being said, let's get into what I want to touch on in today's video. This video means a lot to me because, like I mentioned earlier, I actually grew up in the Christian evangelical space. I was very heavily involved ever since I was a baby. There's often an event that happens for Christians specifically. I know for other religions it's different. I remember when I was a baby, there was this event that I was a part of where my parents went up on stage and the pastors prayed over me, and for my Christian walk for the rest of my life, they blessed my life, if you will. Again, I don't really know how to properly explain it, but I'm mentioning this so you guys know that this has been a huge part of my life. Later on, as I got older, I started serving in the church. I had the opportunity to be a youth leader, to preach to tons of teenagers. I had an at-home girls group where a lot of girls would meet at my house and we would go over Bible studies together. I did a lot of volunteer work and so many other things for the church. And then of course, I also learned a lot about the Bible. I took courses even outside of the church that I was going to, and I went to various different conferences and externships that I paid for out of my own pocket just to expand my knowledge on the Christian faith. And even with all of that and so much more, I still ended up deciding to leave the Christian church. After being there every single Sunday, every single Wednesday, sometimes on Fridays, sometimes on Saturdays, hosting my group on Thursdays, my faith now looks completely different. Now, there are various reasons why I ended up making that choice for my life and why I can honestly say my life has gotten so much better ever since doing so, but that will take some time to fully explain. But I promise with time, as I keep on posting more videos and we start getting into different topics as far as religion goes, you guys will hopefully understand my story a little bit better and understand where I am coming from, starting with today's video, which I still haven't gotten to the title of this video. I do apologize, but we're going to be going over why religious people are some of the meanest people that you will ever meet. Now, I want to make something very clear with this video. I am in no way, shape, or form trying to come for the Christian religion or any religion for that matter. I am also not saying that every single individual that identifies as a Christian is a mean person. And lastly, I am not trying to judge anyone. Today's video goal is actually to explore how certain religious systems, beliefs, and psychological dynamics can unintentionally produce judgmental or mean behavior. And we will be emphasizing the Christian religion specifically because that's the religion that I grew up in. I can't speak to any other religion. However, I do think that there are a lot of parallels between the Christian religion and other major religions as well. So even if you didn't grow up as a Christian, but you did grow up in a hyper-religious environment, I do believe that this video is going to speak to a lot of the questions that you may have regarding people being mean when they're hyper-religious. But the ultimate goal is to understand those who are different than us, not to judge them. Again, a huge thing that I want to do with my platform is to encourage empathy and understanding of people who are different than us. So instead of just outright saying that religious people are mean, catty, and judgmental, I want to dismantle why so many people feel that way. And I think we're going to find a lot of answers for that soon. Now, for starters, I want to go over a general general idea of what a lot of hyper-religious environments are going to consist of as far as the belief system goes. So we're typically going to start with a deity or a higher power that existed at some point in time. This can also be an energy for some religions. From there, the existence of this deity, energy, or higher power is usually known about because it's passed down through traditions or stories. So someone experienced Jesus, for example, years and years ago, and then they told people about it, and then those people told other people about it, and so on and so forth. That's how we know that that happened. And then from there, these stories get typically compiled into a holy text, a holy book. One thing to point out with Christianity specifically, this is something that I always learned, was that these texts are perfect. They're God-breathed and God-inspired. And then, of course, these texts typically come with a list of rules or commandments or belief systems that we have to live by if we want to be holy or if we want to be right in the eyes of that deity or that God. And typically these holy texts and the belief systems that come with the holy texts aren't to be questioned. They are supposed to be taken as the ultimate truth and as the ultimate guidance for our lives if we want to live a healthy, holy, and good life. Now, I'm laying this foundation down because I think it's going to be very telling when we go over the next points that I have for today's video. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes. We're going to get into the reasons behind why I believe a lot of people that are hyper-religious are typically very mean and judgmental. Starting with the very first one, the us versus them thinking that creates moral superiority. Many Christians are taught that believers, those being Christians themselves, are saved, chosen, righteous, and set apart. They're very special people. I heard this all the time. And then on the flip side, we were often told that non-believers, anyone who wasn't a Christian like we were deceived, worldly, and lost. These people actually belonged to Satan, and they needed our help so that the fog that they had in front of their eyes would be cleared and they could see the light and finally believe in Christ and be saved from living in eternity in hell. And so what this does, even unintentionally, is it creates hierarchy psychology, meaning we're a part of this very exclusive group that's holy and set apart, and then there's everyone else. And you see, specifically as Christians, we obviously believe that we have the ultimate truth because we have the Holy Bible, and that's perfect, never to be questioned. But when people believe they possess the ultimate truth, it can typically produce the following: condescension, black and white thinking, lack of curiosity, and reduced empathy for the outsiders. Let's actually go ahead and reference some Bible verses that are often taught to Christians to further emphasize this hierarchy. Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. A clear phrase here is the pattern of this world. This is emphasizing the us versus them mentality, the world versus the holy and set apart. And we have 2 Corinthians 6:14, which says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? Again, this is emphasizing the black and white. There's no in between. You're either all the way in for Christ or you're a part of Satan's world. And this Bible verse specifically is actually discouraging you from mingling with people who aren't believers like you, because the light and the darkness don't go together. And over time, this mentality of being set apart can psychologically develop into this mindset that you are morally superior than everyone else. And here's the thing, right? That's just the ultimate level of cockiness. When you start thinking that you're better than everyone else in any aspect, right? Let's go ahead and step out of religion, for example. When you're on your high horse, it's never going to exude positive and friendly energy. The opposite is actually required. Humility is actually what exudes that beautiful energy. It's being able to step into a place and know that you can learn anything from anyone, regardless of what religion, race, ethnicity, cultural background, or set of belief systems that they have. Having that kind of attitude as opposed to the attitude that you're above everyone else and that you know best is going to make a huge difference in how you interact with people and how other people feel around you. Moving right along into point number 2, fear-based theology can justify justify harshness. Now, I am aware that other religions believe in hell, but again, I will specifically be talking about the Christian religion in this regard. Of course, we're taught that heaven is a very real place, just as hell is. Heaven belongs to God, hell belongs to Satan, and we're going to get to experience one or the other after we pass away, depending on what we believed in during our time here on earth and how we acted. And I think it's important to explain just how harshly and intensely hell is presented to us, even from a very young age. When we're growing up in Christianity, of course, we're presented to hell as this burning lake of fire that people are going to be consumed in, and obviously it's fire, so your skin is going to be burning, it's going to be aching, and that's going to happen forever, for eternity. You will be punished constantly. You're in separation from God, which is described as the very worst thing that you can experience, and of course it will be intense agony. As far as the sounds that are described, there will be lots of weeping, gnashing of teeth, and unending torment. And while we're told that everyone who doesn't believe in Christ is going to end up being there. So if you genuinely believe that people will suffer eternally in hell, then harshness can seem loving for a lot of Christians. And that's the key psychological piece. Because you see, many Christians are taught that offending someone is acceptable if it saves their soul. So it is our due diligence as followers of Christ to make these people aware of their sinful ways and to get them to turn away from Satan so that they don't live the rest of their lives burning in hell. And if that means that we have to offend them, if that means that we have to be harsh, we have to be mean, we have to ignore hurting their feelings, that's okay, because at least they're not going to be suffering in hell for the rest of their lives. So we see how a lot of Christians being blunt and kind of cold with how they approach the outer world actually gets applauded and seen as courage. You're doing a good job. Thumbs up. Jesus is very proud of you. So overall, something that might seem mean and condescending to the average person who's not a religious individual does not seem that way for the person who is hyper-religious, because they're doing the Lord's work and they're looking after you. It's a little bit twisted, but it makes sense once you understand the belief system that's at play when we're talking about hyper-religious spaces. Moving right along to the third reason. Emotional repression often turns into judgment. This one kind of grinds my gears because I am very passionate about emotional regulation and taking your nervous system seriously, because it's a very real thing. But unfortunately, in many Christian environments, feelings and emotions like anger, lust, doubt, jealousy, sexuality, grief, and anxiety, just to name a few, are often heavily moralized. Meaning good feelings are great and they are connected to God. And then on the opposite end, bad feelings are the worst and they're connected to the devil. If you're feeling anger, well, that's just the enemy trying to creep in and take over. Same thing for doubt or anxiety. And if you're at peace and you're having a great time, that's always God. And if you know anything about emotional regulation, demonizing our feelings is some of the worst things that you can do for yourself psychologically. Because feelings aren't a bad thing. They're a part of being a human being. If you have a body and a functioning nervous system, you're going to feel things. And it's actually good because feelings are prompters. They're alert systems that know we need to tend to something a lot deeper inside of us. It encourages awareness, and awareness brings healing. But if you're taught that your feelings are demonic or a part of Satan trying to attack you, of course you're going to take those feelings and you're going to suppress them. You're going to want to get rid of them. You're not going to see them as helpful indicators. And that is not healthy. So oftentimes in Christianity, instead of learning emotional regulation, which is what we should be doing, of getting that feeling, sitting with it, recognizing it, and then processing it, many people learn suppression. And here's the thing about suppressed emotions. They don't disappear. Instead, they usually leak out, project onto others, or emerge as irritability and control, which makes a lot of sense in regards to this conversation that we're having today. The vast majority of hyper-religious individuals have been taught for years on end to suppress their emotions. So we see these people walking around with a whole bunch of bundled up feelings that have never come to the surface. And at a certain point, that's going to overwhelm the nervous system. It's going to overwhelm the person, and it's going to come out in their behavior. Hence why a lot of them can be mean and judgmental. And I would like to go ahead and mention Jeremiah 17:9 specifically for the Christian religion. This is a Bible verse verse that I heard all the time growing up. It says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" So at least for myself, this was presented as something that further encouraged the fact that our feelings are something that we should not be paying attention to. They're something that are connected to the devil because, like the Bible verse says, our heart is deceitful. It's going to lie to us. We can't rely on it. And of course, they say the heart is connected to feelings. So if your heart is making you feel a certain way, that being, again, anger, anxiety, it's just trying to deceive you. Don't bother understanding it. All right, point number 4. Certainty reduces self-awareness. Something that we will see a lot with religious people is that they are certain that their beliefs are true and real, and no one can argue against that. And although I admire the confidence, I also think that's very unhealthy. One thing that has helped me personally ever since deconstructing my faith is no longer thinking that I know the ultimate truth and being okay with that. In fact, I'm very much aware that there are so many things that I don't know and that I will never know. And I'm fine with it because I don't have to know. That mentality has encouraged the possibility of different things being reality. And it has opened me up to hearing different people out. You see, at the end of the day, none of us are God. None of us created the universe. None of us know it all. We're literally just imperfect beings trying to survive on Earth. And because of that, in my opinion, there has to be space for nuance. But honestly, when I was a Christian, that wasn't a thing. I knew that my way was a highway and that I knew the ultimate truth. And if someone believes the following, which I very much did, with the first one being that God directly validates their worldview, scripture is infallible, and questioning equals rebellion, then self-reflection becomes a lot harder. Now you may be asking yourself, why in the world does self-reflection matter? Well, it matters because, again, we're not perfect human beings. We're going to fail. And when we do, it's very important that we are aware of that. Because also, again, awareness brings about healing and it gives you an opportunity to grow as a person and be better. Growing up as Christians, we believe that God is on our side. And if you're already convinced that God is on your side and he has nothing to do with anyone else's side, in a way, you're not really going to care about what anyone says or feels. There's no reason to consider anyone else because you know best. And the reason why I say that's dangerous is because this mentality can produce defensiveness, the inability to apologize, moral rigidity, and intellectual arrogance, which aren't really attributed with being nice. In fact, it's more attributed with being mean. The next reason is that projection may be playing a massive role. Because the harsher someone is toward others, the more likely they are fighting something internally. For example, people that are terrified of their own sexuality may obsess over other people's sexuality, or people who are ashamed of anger may become hypercritical. And lastly, people suppressing doubt may attack questioners. Because psychologically speaking, projection helps people externalize inner conflict. And we see this all the time. I mean, heck, I'm guilty of doing this myself without realizing it. And it also doesn't help that there are a lot of taboos within the Christian religion, and we're not encouraged to openly speak up about a lot of real issues that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So what happens in turn again is that we suppress those emotions, we try to get rid of them, we act like they don't exist, but they're very much still there. And in this case, they're going to come out in the form of projection. Now, the very last point I want to go over is persecution culture and how it can create hostility. Many Christians are taught that the world will hate you. I mean, literally, let's look at John 15:18, which says, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that they hated me first," Jesus speaking. Which I do understand that Bible verse, but I think a lot of us get it wrong. Because now anything that we say or do that's harmful, that in turn produces a negative reaction from the outer world, is just the world being haters because they hated Jesus. And then we see how disagreement soon becomes interpreted as proof of righteousness. The slippery slope here is that sometimes you get the hate because you're actually being hateful toward other people, or you're actually being a really crappy person toward other people. And I think it's important that we understand the fine line between people persecuting us and hating on us for our beliefs, and people having valid reactions to the sick and twisted things that we're spewing out. But oftentimes it seems like there's no consciousness of that, and the lines are very blurred. And instead, the mindset unintentionally creates a victim complex, defensive defensiveness or hostility toward criticism. So sometimes people stop asking, am I really being harmful? And instead ask, am I being persecuted for sharing the truth? Personally, I think it's always healthy to ask the first one. But all in all, when it comes to the persecution complex that we're taught as Christians and in other hyper-religious spaces, typically if we constantly think that other people are in opposition to us and other people are trying to attack us and hate on us, then we're not going to respond in the kindest of ways. Hence why we can come off as very mean. And well, my friends, those are all of the psychological reasons why I believe that religious people are some of the meanest people, unfortunately, that we will cross paths with. But in conclusion, I do want to mention that the issue may not simply be that Christians are bad people. The issue is that certain belief systems that are built on fear, depression, hierarchy, and shame can predictably produce judgmental and mean behavior unless people intentionally develop emotional maturity and self-awareness alongside their faith. I think that would make all the difference. I'm not telling religious individuals to walk away from their faith altogether and stop believing what they believe in. Perhaps what I'm saying is to invite a little bit of nuance, self-awareness, and critical thinking into the conversation. I truly believe that those two things combined together are going to bring about healthier connections with the outer world. But I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I love having conversations with you guys. Also, if you guys have any other video requests, whether it is related to religion and faith topics, or if it's something completely different and it has nothing to do with that, I'm honestly open to talking about anything as long as we're growing and we're learning. So if you do want to share some suggestions privately, the best way to reach me is on my other social media platforms, which I will leave down below. Go ahead and shoot me a DM. And of course, if you guys did enjoy this video and you guys are interested in more videos, then go ahead and join the family and subscribe to the channel. With all of that being said, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching and supporting, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.